This video is brought to you by Kempower, the reliable, quick, and scalable EV charging solution for everyone and everywhere. And this video is also brought to you by StarCharge, the largest EV charging manufacturer in the world. They are also a provider of residential and commercial battery storage with microgrid solutions.
Good news! A Dacia Sandero. if anyone gets that reference, that means you know Top Gear. Anyways, that's not why I'm here. This is why I'm here. Welcome to Munich, or somewhere near Munich, and I'm actually in sort of a secret Audi location. So secret, in fact, that they took my phone, which has my notes. So you're relying on my memory and actually my reading of my notes, my handwriting. Good luck. Anyways, this is actually why I'm here. The Q6 e-tron, or in this case, the SQ6. They are showing us both models today, and I'm going to tell you everything I can possibly think to tell you. Before we get into it, let me explain what the Q6 e-tron is in a nutshell. And by the way, everything will be chapterized down below so you can see kind of when I'm walking around the car versus explaining some of the engineering. But the Q6 e-tron is the newest of the e-trons, the electrified products from Audi. It is built on the newer PPE platform, Premium Platform Electric, which is shared with the Macan EV, and it slots in between the Q4 e-tron and the Q8 e-tron. Numerically speaking, makes complete sense. It's a CUV somewhere between those sizes. So with that, let's go back to the studio. I've always wanted to say that. So we're going to start and talk about the design. And actually, the very first thing I want to mention is my favorite thing about the design, the actual lighting signatures, which are relatively customizable. There's actually 8 different methods you can use to customize the DRLs, which is pretty fantastic. Now, they have kind of a living lighting function, which of course works in every country in the world except for the US, which is such a bummer. But that's fine. But we do get in the US different customizable DRLs, which I think is pretty cool. DRLs are the way you can kind of customize the fascia of your car, and it's what makes it very, very noticeable, and people know exactly what it is. Now, people have asked, can they actually be fully custom? Like, can a user define which pixels are lit up? Because these are, in effect, OLED displays. That is actually not the case. Audi still wants their actual brand image to be part of the fascia of the car, so you can choose from 8 Audi approved designs, and of course they can introduce more through over-the-air updates, so you can expect that functionality. Of course, they have the matrix LED headlights, which we don't get the full matrix function in the US. Sad also. I don't know why the US is literally like decades behind in safety functionality for lighting. It's very frustrating as someone in the US. Maybe I should just move here to Germany. You also have the front grille. Now, people also ask, why do the e-tron vehicles have a fake grille? It actually doesn't offend me in this case. This car that we're looking at is Manhattan Gray. It has the black package, which I think is the way to go. Maybe Audi has seen Alyssa's e-tron and saw how good it looks, and so that is now a way that you can order it. In fact, there's 2 different, like both the S line and the SQ8 or SQ6 can have the black package, which is just the way to do it, honestly. But yeah, the grille is kind of fake, blacked out. These are not holes, they're just black effects. Oh, actually, that looks pretty good though, I think. It looks a bit more like a real grille. And I think part of the reason they do that is because, well, they still have combustion vehicles, and so they have grilles, they want to look like an Audi. That's the whole reason they do that. So beyond that, you have some sort of fake venting here. I'm not the biggest fan of that. Just the whole black fascia. It blends in a bit better with this Manhattan Gray, but otherwise it's a lot of kind of piano black accents. But down here there is a little bit of active aero, so it's not completely void of the active aero element, although that's the only part you'll find, unlike its sister car, the Macan EV. Speaking of sister cars, this is the PPE platform, Premium Platform Electric, which is kind of the future of Audi that we kind of know of. You know, they have 4 electric vehicle platforms now, the J1 underlying the Audi e-tron GT and RS e-tron GT. The MEB platform underlies the Q4 e-tron. The MLB Evo platform underlines the Q8, which is like their premium. That's a lot to keep track of. And people are wondering, where is Audi going? I think this is kind of the future. In fact, later this year, you'll see premium platform combustion coming out, PPC, which will underlie the Q5 and the likes of that. So this underpinnings wise is very similar to the Macan EV with the battery technology. Different motors actually, but I will get into all the actual engineering lingo later on. So this is just really going to be a look at the styling, the design ethos, the design elements. So you can skip to the next chapter if you want to look at the engineering stuff later. But this is, I think, the absolute best looking e-tron SUV. I definitely like it more than the Q4, even the Q8. Honestly, after this video, I'm not sure why I would pick a Q8 over this, unless you need the space, unless you need the massaging seats. This seems to have everything I care about. Yeah, so as far as design also, there's wheel sizes, 18 to 21 inches, but in the US we don't get the 18, so you don't have to worry about the really small looking kind of base spec wheels. Don't worry about that, just get the biggest ones possible. And otherwise, there's this kind of side blade thing. I don't want to call it side blade, that's Audi R8 terminology, but this is, I guess, just the middle. Let's see, I forgot what they exactly called it. Lots of notes here, but basically that's kind of the heart of the side of the car, kind of showing there's a battery in there. I don't know, that's what the design language is portraying. And I get it, it actually works well. It breaks up the side of the car. You know, some SUVs have all black down here to make it look slimmer. That's one way to do it. I actually like this way just fine. It's similar to the Macan EV in that effect. Another thing to note that's very prominent, the first thing I noticed, you know, we've all seen those wrapped ones outside, like the prototype looking ones. It was very cool to see it unwrapped in this case, and that's where you really see these creases that are along the both front and rear. Those are the Quattro blister shoulders, basically. But the Quattro blisters, which is an interesting design name, I guess, interesting name regardless. I really like it. It gives this thing a very aggressive stance, and it actually takes some design cues from the e-tron GT, which honestly might be my favorite piece of the J1. The Taycan's amazing too, but the RS e-tron GT is just one of the peak cars in my opinion. Can't wait to see what else comes in the sports car lineup. Maybe a TT eventually, we'll see. I mentioned the lighting up front. There's also the lighting around back. Also clearly taking cues from the e-tron GT, the blade all the way across. And here are more OLED panels. You can actually see they're kind of alive right now, which, like I said, we don't get the alive function while driving in the US. They can even do, which I can show on the screen, an overlay, like a triangle for representing danger, or like you have the flashers on or something. There's dynamic functionality with these lights, and you can control a number of different customizable brake lights, which is really cool. You can have like a sporty kind of S-style one, or just a few different options, which is interesting. Each of these elements actually have 60 pixels. They're actually triangular pixels, not rectangular ones. So that's pretty interesting. So 360 pixels across all 6 displays effectively. And you can see 2, actually 4, go up with the tailgate, while 1 stays on the very side. And this thing just looks fantastic all the way around. Like, there's not really a bad angle on this car. Let's actually take a really quick look in the trunk space. And I believe this is 500 and something liters. I'll put everything on the screen in actual US measurements. They just gave us liters because we are in Europe, and that's how they measure things, which is a bit more modular. Yeah, that's maybe the granular, that's the word. A little bit of under trunk space where you can see, you know, in this case, an EVSE charging cable and a subwoofer. Subwoofer is not exactly a looker, but it doesn't need to be. It's hidden, and that is the sub for the fantastic, allegedly, Bang & Olufsen sound system. I haven't heard it yet, but Bang & Olufsen is a fantastic brand, so I'm excited to hear it. And judging by other ones I've heard, yeah, it's probably fantastic. There's even like headrest speakers you can get, but plenty of storage space. Definitely sized up from the Q4 e-tron and a little bit smaller than the Q8 e-tron, as we can all expect. Down below, there's a bit of a black diffuser looking thing, which looks best in black, just like Alyssa's e-tron. This whole thing just makes me think of Alyssa's e-tron shrunk down just a little bit. Now hers is fully blacked out. I do like this Manhattan gray color. As far as colors we get in the US,
You can have any color you want as long as it's grayscale or blue. There's 2 shades of blue and some whites and grays and black and such. So honestly, very handsome color scheme for this car. I'm not even that offended because usually I like bright colored cars, but for your classy SUV, just keep it grayscale, I guess. Around the side, as you saw on the other side, there was a charging port. There's also this one. It's a little slow to open, but it is power opening. Unlike the Macan EV, which like pushes in and goes over to the side, this one opens out like this. Here you can see the Euro style CCS port. In the US, we will have our CCS port, and on either side, you can actually level 2 charge it with just the AC charging here on the other side. In the US, that'll be 9.6 kilowatts, I guess. In the Europe, they get 11. So they just do a lot of things better here. I guess, there we go, that'll close it. Eventually, of course, we'll see NACS, but this will probably not launch with NACS because this car comes out at the end of the year. Now, you're probably already typing in the comments, what is pricing? We don't know yet, but that should also come out this summer, I believe, which is when the first official press drives will be, and then we'll find out everything we want to know about pricing. And all they can tell us is this will slot between Q4 and Q8, which mathematically makes sense. This is Q6. Now, as you can tell, all the even numbered cars seem to be electric, Q4, Q6, Q8 e-tron, whereas the combustion ones are Q5, Q7, Q3. That's the nomenclature right now. That could all change by 2033, sorry, almost 10 years from now, they'll all be electric. So that should be all their odd numbered ones too. So it's a lot of different options at that point. But for now, we can just look at what we have here. This seems to be the piece of the future. Really quick, I'm gonna open the front trunk while you're up there, and we're going to see what is inside. You'll see a frunk here that is 64 liters, which is just a bit smaller than the Macan EV, but still definitely usable. I'll take that over, you know, like ID4, which has no front trunk. This is definitely fine. In fact, especially with the underfloor storage in the rear, you could actually put like backpacks or groceries and stuff up here. So glad to see that they didn't just omit it completely. I still want to know what you guys think of front trunks. There's a surprising amount of people who are all over the place. Some people love it, some people dislike it. I can go either way. I think it is nice to have though. Just give us as much storage space as possible, package everything as neatly as possible. Yeah, so there's some cameras around the car. You can see probably pretty good 360 camera. ADAS features, we'll be testing all of that when we actually get the car to drive it. But today is really just a look at the design. We'll jump in the interior here in a second, and we will also talk about some of the engineering. So the competition they do mention in this sort of premium segment is like the Model Y and the i3X, which are, I guess, sort of entry premium, and that actually does kind of make sense. This is like mid premium. They're trying not to like cannibalize their own Q8, but really, like I said, I don't know why I would pick the Q8 over this for many reasons, especially when we talk about charging, which I'll just tease, 270 kilowatts, incredible charging with a 10 to 80% in like 21 minutes, same as Macan EV. And the range should be pretty decent, around 300 miles EPA estimated. It's not actually tested yet, so we will find that out eventually. And speaking of Q8, this is, let's see, 2,899 millimeters, which is this many inches wheelbase. It is a fairly elongated wheelbase, short overhangs front and rear, which are nice, should be good dynamics. And it's 13 centimeters shorter than the Q8. So it really does slot right in between. So just a really quick look on the interior. Again, we'll spend a lot more time with this car in the future, but just so you have a sneak preview, this is the interior. The steering wheel is definitely different than the Macan. It's got a bit of a flat bottom and top, which feels fairly sporty. And I actually like the golf ball type leather. Reminds me of like the shifter of the Mark 7 GTI, you know, all those, the Golf. But very quintessential, I'd say, Audi. A whole lot of piano black. That's a bit disappointing for me. It does look really nice in the showroom here where they literally just wiped it down. But the moment you start using it, fingerprints happen. I'll give it a pass for now because it does look pretty nice. Cup holders, seems like a decent amount actually. And there's even this little Audi thermos thing that seems to lock into place. I guess that might come with your car, which is reason enough to buy this car. USB-C ports, which is nice to see. We are finally in the future there. Piano black on the steering wheel looks nice too. And it is like haptically responding, but also does click. So I guess it's okay. It actually seems fairly intuitive. A lot of things actually seem pretty intuitive. Their UI is pretty great. These screens are very responsive. They are OLED. Everything's OLED except for the passenger display is not OLED. It's actually a LED technology that has some sort of refresh thing to basically hide its view from the driver, which is very interesting. So, passenger display, a first for Audi. And it's very similar to the Macan EV. If you've already used that one, you know, passengers can watch videos or set the next destination without interfering with the driver's huge display. And holy cow, the heads-up display, which you can't really see, but I can overlay it with a photo, is huge and very, very clear. They used OLED, which is just the absolute way to do it. Otherwise, you see like a square of, you know, clearly not quite black pixels. So OLED is fantastic. The screens seem very bright, very, very vibrant, very nice contrast, and very responsive. This is built on an Android OS stack, so very functional, and actually it's Android open source. So it's not like a Google thing like you see with Polestar and those types of cars. It's actually just Audi's own software written on top of the Android, but that does open up to the functionality of third-party app stores, like other companies can develop apps for this car, which is fantastic. And inside it, you know, we'll go through this all in another video at some point, but a whole lot of things you can adjust. There's even like games you can play while you're sitting there charging, but you shouldn't have to sit and charge that long because unlike the Q8 e-tron, this will actually charge much, much faster. So you can adjust all the things like the fancy lights that we saw on the outside, like exterior lighting, all those fancy DRLs, which I would probably spend too much time doing. But yeah, interior feel, fit and finish. This is, of course, the S car, the SQ6. So nice Alcantara, which means you know it's fast. And these seats are very sporty. They hold me in place, and really fantastic room, actually. I will actually step into the back as well, but seems to be a pretty good use of space. And sitting behind myself, which actually I had plenty of room up front, and I still have some room to spare here. So easily 6 feet plus people can sit behind each other. Plenty of headroom. I believe we have the glass roof as standard in the US. This is actually a solid roof option here in Europe, which is fine, but the glass roof would make it feel even more spacious in here. So I am pretty impressed. That's pretty much it for just a quick look around the car. We'll go talk about some engineering stuff upstairs, but for now, yeah, I'll just sit in this and pretend like I'm on the road. Now that we're lone viewers, yeah, so they were actually filming me with a real car. They took my device, my phone, everything. So I had to rely on written notes, and I had to rely on their videographer using a super fancy camera. It was actually quite cool. But now I'm back to my old trusty iPhone to give you a bit more of the engineering nerdy stuff. I'll probably do some review of this stuff with Kyle as well, just so we can get his impressions, since he was at the Macan EV event, which was very similar to this, just with Porsche and Macan looking at the PPE structure for them. But this is the PPE event for Audi itself. So let's look at some of the technical deep dive things. With Kyle at the Macan EV event, they had the whole chassis, rolling chassis without the body and stuff out on display next to the Macans, I think. So we actually looked at that, but I have that separately. And I also have the prototype car right here. So we can actually look at that too and maybe see a bit more things in depth. I was very limited with time downstairs just a moment ago. Like, the stuff you saw me presenting was literally my time window. In fact, I went over a little bit. So let's get into a bit more nerdy stuff. I'm also keeping my voice down a little bit because, well, my voice is almost gone, but they're also doing some Vision Pro things over there. But anyways, this is kind of the rolling chassis, literally rolling actually. They have the motors going very slowly. I don't know, maybe that's how they get their impressive range. But this is, again, the PPE, Premium Platform Electric, kind of in the underpinnings. And there's not a whole lot different in this area from the Macan EV that you saw with Kyle's video. So definitely I recommend checking out his Macan EV video to get really in depth with some of the PPE stuff. But as a high level view, this is the battery. This is 100 kilowatt hours. Gross, the actual usable portion is 94.4 for the US, 94.9 for Europe. I need to figure out why those numbers are different. But for us in the US, 94.4 kilowatt hours usable. This is the battery pack composed of 12 modules, each one containing 15 prismatic cells in the batteries. And they have, I guess, aluminum sides, which help I guess, transmit the heat or cooling, which is all done via a plate underneath. So the cooling is all routed through the bottom, and it's emanated through the batteries by the aluminum. And yeah, it touches every single cell pretty decently, actually. They're very proud of their cooling strategy. The battery cells do use nickel, manganese, cobalt, and each individual cell has its own sensors for temperature, voltage, everything you could possibly need to know, which is fed into the battery management controller to give you all the information. Well, I guess it doesn't really give you all the information, but gives the car all the information, and the car thinks it knows best with what to do with that. I did ask about on-route preconditioning. There is no manual battery preconditioning, which we're actually okay with. I've talked to Kyle about that, and I think that is a pretty good strategy because people may abuse that button, which would burn excessive energy, which is just not good. Unfortunately, the on-route preconditioning only works within the car's actual nav. If you're using Apple Maps or Google Maps, even if you're riding to a charging station, the car won't necessarily know that. Now that can change, software can change. So hopefully as CarPlay and Google Maps get more integrated, those could actually maybe be data points that the car uses to realize, oh, I'm being navigated to a charger, I should precondition myself. We're not sure. We're gonna follow up on that and see, you know, when this actually launches, which is like much later, I mean, 9 months to a year from now, we'll see if that actually has the functionality as promised. Now, right up here is the junction box, and the battery management system is over there. This is all kind of where the brain and, yeah, I guess power is looped through. Sometimes these are actually lit up showing the direction of the power, but you can kind of clearly tell power comes from the battery into the motors. In this case, the front motor is a synchronous unit. The rear motor is a permanent magnet. Now, unlike Macan, people are wondering, like, what's the difference between Macan and e-tron, or Q6 e-tron? Macan has permanent magnet both axles, and they are a bit beefier, more performance-oriented motors, whereas the Q6 is stationed kind of as a bit more comfortable, kind of like when you compare e-tron GT to Taycan. It's like Taycan's a bit more of the super high performance, whereas Q6 is a bit more, or the e-tron GT is a bit more of the comfort. Now there's a really quick view of the cooling system in action. Those pipes are basically what's inside the underpinning of the battery, the floor of the battery, and that's what is touching every single cell. Warm or cold coolant is drawn through and receives back the other way in its other temperature. So they can either warm the battery if it's too cold or cool the battery if it's too warm. There's also a heat pump functionality, which is beneficial for range within a certain operating temperature. It is actually possible to be too cold for a heat pump to be useful. I think it's like 5 degrees Fahrenheit below that. It's not really useful. It's just too cold to be functional. And above 68 degrees Fahrenheit, it's also not useful because, well, it's already warm enough. You don't need it. But yeah, this is the asynchronous front motor. Now, the front motor, the asynchronous one and the permanent magnet one, are actually built on the same assembly line, and they can dynamically structure how many motors they build because they all have basically the same dimensions, other than the rear one, as you can tell, is a bit longer. That's a bit more powerful. I think 280 kilowatts peak is its capability, 140 kilowatts. Talking about the total power of the car, the Q6 is 422 horsepower, or 456 under boost. You can have boost with the Q6 and the SQ6. SQ6 is 483 horsepower, 516 with the boost. Now, in terms of kilowatt, you'll notice that is not the equivalent of 420 kilowatts of power, which is what the motors would be if you added them with both under full power. So I guess they are either derated to protect them, or I'm not sure. But again, the rear motor is a bit longer, and that is really just because of the stator length. The stators, which are actually over here, we can see hairpin stators. The length is, I guess, 100 millimeters for the front and 200 for the rear. And they both have, I think, 210 for the diameter. You can see even the wiring itself is actually rectangular, so they're really getting every single bit of, I guess, copper in the smallest space as possible. But here's the hairpin style of these stators. And here's some of the gearbox stuff, which is pretty cool. So it's cool to have all this stuff portrayed out for all the nerds to look at. But the rear motor is a bit more efficient. And so in efficiency mode, that is the one that is running. The front one being asynchronous means it doesn't have to have power through it all the time. So it's actually completely shut off and the rear motor is the only one operational. So that is how to get the absolute maximum range figure, which by the way is again 300 miles estimated. There is going to be actually a smaller battery pack in the Europe with these two modules removed from the very middle. We don't get that in the US. We will only have the standard bigger battery pack in the US. But in the US we will have Q6 and SQ6 at launch, but we will eventually have a single motor kind of entry-level Q6 e-tron and the Q6 e-tron Sportback. Those will come later. As far as suspension, while we're talking about that, you can see here air suspension is included on the SQ6, optional on the Q6. And I think air suspension really is the way to go. It's very, very, very nice. So with charging, like I said, this will do 270 kilowatt peak, but it can also do the split pack thing, just like the Macan EV. So that would mean in a 400 volt architecture system, you could receive 135 kilowatt charging, which is still decent. And in fact, it's sad that some cars peak with that. So that's just this in its half form, which is impressive. The battery is 570 kilograms, which is effectively lighter than the 700 kilogram battery pack that was with the original big e-tron, and still 5 kilowatt hours more, give or take, than the original e-tron. So they've mentioned those numbers to prove that in fact they are making strides towards more efficiency energy use in its space. Over here, there's not a whole lot to get into here. This is just a absolute chaotic mess of wiring, but it's pretty cool to see what the wiring harness kind of looks like in a nutshell, like by itself. This is absolutely wild to look at and overwhelming, and not much to show you here other than the fact that they have HCP, which I think is I don't know, computers. Those are computers. I don't know what it stands for, but there are 5 computers on this car, which is a lot, plus the fuse boxes, plus the wireless transmitter thing, which I think is this thing. Yes, I guess that's how the car communicates with the world, I guess. Here's where you can see the charging ports actually, which again are the Euro style over here, but it's nice to have level 2 charging on both sides. That means you can park in the garage any which way and should have decently easy access to charge your car, assuming you have home charging. But even the streets, I mean, over here in Europe, there's a bit more common level 2 charging on the streets, which actually in Europe, you usually have your own charging cable, which is nice. I wish the US would do that. That would mean less cables being damaged from people just abusing the heck out of them. In the US, we will have level 2 charging with a peak of like 9.6 kilowatts, I guess with 40 amps, but we will eventually get 80 amp charging, which will be whatever 9.6 times 2 is, and that will give you better level 2 performance. I guess Q8 e-tron has that apparently, and Q6 is not launching with it, but it will come later. And once again, NACS or J3400 or whatever it's called will be the charging standard probably the second model year, if I had to guess. It's not launching with it. But this is the prototype that you've probably seen some other videos on. They actually had a drive event with these. Unfortunately, we were not at that drive event, but it looks kind of cool with the camo. But I will say what the camo hid that you saw earlier was these kind of blisters. That's right, Quattro blisters. The camo hides them fairly well, which is maybe intentional. This just looks basically e-tron. And this actually shows you probably maximum suspension height, like it's pretty tall. And you can see the cockpit maybe a bit more. This lighter color, I think, might be an option in the US. It makes it feel a bit bigger inside. That's about it. There's not a whole lot else to show you at the moment. This car is not turned on. So I'm excited to show you guys more in the actual interior when we have to spend time with the car. We can go on a kind of a software deep dive and see what's new in their Android-based OS. But yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on the design language while I have a bit more time with this? I guess both wheels, there's 10 different options of wheels, but like I said, the US won't get the 18-inch, so that's probably 8 or 9 options of wheels in the US. What do you think of the fake grille? What do you think of the fake vents? I'm personally not a fan. At least they don't have the fake exhaust pipes like the Q5 has. That would be abysmal. The back's actually not too offensive. And then even door handles, actually. I talked to one of the designers about door handles because, you know, many cars now, are, especially electric ones, are having this pop in, pop out door handles. You know, the EGMP cars are doing it. Teslas, of course, have that. Audi has stuck with the traditional door handles. They are, you know, blatantly a traditional auto manufacturer. And so they've decided not to completely change everything, which is maybe good for some people easing into electrification. They don't want to take a complete weird step in design language or functionality. This acts like a combustion vehicle, but has, of course, modern now with PPE underpinnings of electric. But that being said, they have the fake grille, the fake inlets, the door handles. I don't know. Give me your thoughts on all that. With the software stack, by the way, they are very proud of the AI assistance. I forgot to mention this inside the car, but the Hey Audi, as it's called, the wake word, I guess, as default, which I think you might be able to customize, that will actually let you do lots of things with natural language processing, just like we've seen with Volkswagen announcing at the CES convention. It's mentioned that you can, you know, tell the car, hey, I'm cold, or my feet are cold, or I'm hungry, take me to a restaurant, or a whole lot of things. You can even convert measurements from one unit to another. They gave a lot of random examples. But what's cool is you can actually do both offline and online things. So certain in-car functions, like, for example, saying my feet are cold, the car will know, even if you're offline in the middle of nowhere, how to respond to that. And they've given the fact that it can actually do it in record time. It's supposedly like lightning fast. Now, I can't wait to test that myself because it's kind of a bold claim, but we'll see. Maybe it is really that fast. I also asked if it is like integrated completely with like a CarPlay or Google Assistant, like will Siri or Google Assistant know what to do with the car functions, and they said it should be separate. So with the actual steering wheel button that uses like the voice assistant, you can press it for the Audi one or hold it for Siri or Google Assistant, which is good. It's nice to have both options. What's also interesting about that is the passenger could say, hey Audi, do this, and if it's something that would affect the driver, like negatively, it could just ignore it. So if the passenger was like, hey Audi, set it to dynamic mode, it would not do that because the driver didn't give the command. So it apparently has enough microphones to know exactly who is giving the actual command, which is good. With the drivetrain, there's actually now, finally, one pedal driving. I probably should have started the video with that because that's a big deal. A lot of people are pretty used to it with the EV world, and notably, none of the e-tron platform vehicles have had one pedal driving yet. That is all changing now with the Q6. So it actually feels quite good. In fact, they let us take it on one super quick lap around the parking lot, which I can actually show you now. What is this, a Q6 or SQ6?
This is a Q6.
Q6, okay.
Hard to tell the difference.
Woo!
So the idea is to have maybe 1 or 2 rounds to try out regen and also the different modes.
Okay, all right.
All right, then just drive.
Good.
And regen is being set up with the pedals.
Pedals, okay.
The pedals, either with the pedals, yeah, left one.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's D2, D1,
exactly.
D0.
And then the one pedal feeling is you need to go with B.
B, yeah. Brake mode. Got
brake mode, and then this car comes to a standstill.
Okay.
Yeah. And now?
Maybe I'll start with the brake mode.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we can go.
Just see how the one pedal feels.
Yes.
Definitely dynamic sounding. Oh yeah, nice strong regen. So up to 220 kilowatts regen.
Yeah.
And just doing liftoff. Nice one pedal. Okay. Well, that's pretty simple for that. Go to D mode. And so now I'm on full coasting. Yeah, 0 regen unless I hit the brake, which of course brake blending is useful. Now I'm using 1, level 1, that's pretty good. Not too strong. I forget the meters per second squared. And 2, that's probably what I would drive it in. So Audi opted to go for the one pedal, unlike the Porsche mentality.
Yeah, but you can choose. If you do the 0, then it's the coasting. That's the coasting mode.
You give options. That's nice.
Yeah.
Let the people choose.
This was the customer's demand, that you have not only 2 steps in regeneration, but also the full one pedal feeling.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so you can choose which one you prefer.
Do another lap?
Of course you can. Yeah. Comfort.
Everything comfort. Okay.
Steering must be different, and also the dampers and the sound as well.
Yeah.
More silent.
A little bit quieter. That's probably how I like it. And yeah, just wafting around. It's nice. And of course, there's efficiency mode, off-road mode, which just I guess permanent all-wheel drive. And then the efficiency plus only kicks in with 50 kilometers of range left, and that cuts off HVAC. Okay, back to dynamic.
That was enough.
That's enough for comfort. I'm not road tripping right now.
Oh, okay.
You're literally on
back to B. Yeah, I do like the B. It's good one pedal driving. All one pedal driving is not necessarily good, and this is not the SQ6, but it does have launch control.
Yeah.
So can I try that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Brake. Yeah. And then that.
Still kicks pretty good.
Yep.
And what is the 0 to 60 or 0 to 100 kph for this one?
Oh, I have to look it up.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't want to give you the wrong numbers, but we can check it.
Good enough, I'd say.
Yeah.
And how much traction control can you disable? Like fully off or just limited?
It's limited. It's good and limited.
Yeah. Does the SQ6 allow full traction control off?
Only there's a certain level is still there.
Okay.
Yeah.
They'll save that for the RS. Allegedly. Nice. How's the back seat?
Pretty nice.
Pretty good.
Nice.
Nice.
That's good. Right. Yeah.
Good.
It drives great.
Yeah.
Steering wheel's great, honestly. Nice. A little bit flattened, a little bit sporty. And yeah, these displays are fantastic. And pretty responsive. Yeah, okay, SQ6 now, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. This is the spicy one. I can already tell by the interior. Dark black interior, some Alcantara. This is how I know it's fast.
It works exactly like in the other cars, so...
Yep. We'll just start with, honestly, we'll do B as well. Oh man, I like these materials on the steering wheel. This is great. Yeah, this drives so great. I don't know about the sound, but I know you can change that with individual. Within individual, I can just make dynamic minus the sound, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, launching. 3, 2, 1. Oh, definitely pulls a bit harder than the other one. Oh yeah, quick 0 to 80 kph right there. That felt fantastic. So, we'll do balanced, yeah. Sound, comfort, steering, dynamic. See how this works. Definitely feels a bit more of the body roll. Air suspension to dynamic. Yeah, that seems to give you the most confidence around the corners. Yeah, with the right tires, this would actually be kind of fun on track. And it's not even the RS model. So you need some bolstering in the back seat then.
Oh yeah. The middle one, yeah.
Looks great. Wonder if anyone's gonna wrap their car as this.
Larger than most everybody else. Oh. That's nice.
By the way, I think the actual reason for the battery being different usable capacity in US versus other markets is due to the requirements and shipping, possibly. This is not a confirmed engineering response, but what I've heard is that it's possibly because of the buffer required for safe shipment results in the literally only half a kilowatt hour difference in usable capacity. So it'll be really funny if the EPA number for the US is like 299 miles, because you know where the last mile could have come from. So that's been a brief quick look at the Audi Q6 e-tron and SQ6 e-tron. Those will be coming again at the end of the year. We still don't know pricing, we still don't know final range numbers. Regardless of what they say, we will actually test that in our own usual out-of-spec tests, but it's still early days for this car. The premium platform electric sister car to the Macan EV. Once again, Kyle has a lot more in-depth stuff on like the battery and all those things that transfer over to this car in his Macan EV videos, so definitely check those out. But yeah, the motors in this are a bit different. Asynchronous front motor, different permanent magnet rear motor, not quite as powerful as Macan EV, stated to be a bit more of the efficiency king. So we should see great numbers from this in our 10% challenge, probably pretty good range. And like I said, it'll launch with the Q6 Quattro and the SQ6, but we will also see a rear-wheel drive, even more efficient, bigger range king coming later on, probably next year. Maybe that one will ship with NACS. It's a bit disappointing that they're not releasing this directly with NACS, but again, Audi didn't promise that until the year after this comes out, so what can we say? But yeah, what do you guys think of the PPE platform so far? I'm really curious how things will look with this PPE and the later coming PPC, Premium Platform Combustion. That'll be interesting. And there is also an upcoming SSP platform, which is going to be their sporty second generation platform underpinning probably the e-tron GT and whatever else, other sports car things. So a lot of platforms. That'll be a fifth platform if they don't retire something else. Maybe they'll retire the MLB Evo platform. I don't know. There's so many platforms. What do you guys think of the confusion over here at Audi? Honestly, they don't seem confused. They seem very happy and proud of their work. Maybe that's a bit biased, but hey, I'm intrigued. I love the daytime running lights. I love the design, actually. For an SUV, for a CUV, it looks quite good, especially in that black trim, black package, whatever they call it. That's really the way you want to get it. So otherwise, you have to be like Alyssa and just have it all plasti dipped or wrapped or whatever she did. So anyways, I digress. My tired, nasally voice is done. I need to go get some sleep desperately. So put me on a plane, bring me back to the States, and I'll see you guys in another video very soon. Until then, cheers from Munich, Germany.